All right. I think we are live. Yep. So let me check the recording. It looks like we're good. So I will try to keep the chat kind of visible today. And what I'm going to be going through today is a kind of a non-traditional. Let me just make sure my audio is working too. Hang on. Okay, let me just make sure. Okay, yeah, that looks good. All right. So, sorry, for today, I'm going to be going through a sort of a non-traditional demo of Centro and Grok. And what I mean by that is I'll kind of explain the value proposition and show how the tools work, but I'm also going to show and sneak in some configuration of how this is working because I think it's really important to understand not only what the tool set can do, but how easy it is and quick to configure. We spent a lot of investment and time making sure that this goes smoothly, both for the users and the administration team, because we want time to value as part of our value proposition. We want you to get a lot of use out of connecting Salesforce and Slack together using our tool set. So I sent out an email earlier this week talking about our overall value proposition with Centro and Grok. And the idea is we want to. I'll step back. How this product got started was um, I was leading the engineering group at a company called Conga, and I noticed I was kept getting pulled into Slack conversations for all sorts of customer related discussions. So that could be, um, you know, pre-sales work. Does the product do this, or how do you configure that? To deal progression. You know, contract negotiation things. To customer success and support. So, the customer is having this problem, or, they would love to have more adoption on this piece of the product. So I was involved in a lot of what I'll call sort of tissue paper Slack conversations, really quick chats happening in Slack, whether they're a DM, a public chat in a thread, or a private chat with a group. And mostly we're just trying to solve some problem for the customer, right? I'm sure you've seen this. And what's great about it is the reactivity, the reaction time of getting those problem solves goes way down in Slack. It's really, really rapid. You don't have to wait for an email chain or someone to read your email. You can at mention someone in Slack and usually get a response pretty quickly. Um, so we love that, and especially kind of wrapping around a customer. The downside is all those nuggets and lessons that are happening in Slack are disconnected from the system of record, which is Salesforce, right? So how do you link those two together meaningfully without a lot of disruption to the team who is having those conversations? Make that really natural and smooth. So that's one key aspect, is making that linkage happen. It's captured, and make it really easy for the team to adopt. And get it into the system of record where you can start to understand what's going on in context of your structured data in Salesforce. The next piece is sort of this tooling and enablement of the sales and support teams who are active in those channels. And so that's where Centro comes in with a lot of our flow, our Salesforce flow elements, to push notifications, get approvals, create new Slack channels when something happens, provide the context of the record in Salesforce to Slack. And then finally, okay, so you have all these things linked together. How do you then how do you grok it? And that's why we named the product Grok. How do you read all of that conversation? There's a lot of good nuggets in there, but there's also a lot of cruft, right? Lots of niceties and things. We want to strip all that out, get to the core of the meat of the conversation, and have that surfaced meaningfully from those Slack conversations. Okay, so what that value prop looks like for us is, enabling sales and support teams to learn, that's Grok, and react, that's the um, the flow elements that I talked about in Salesforce and Slack. Okay, so that in mind, I'm going to play the role of a customer success manager. And like I said, this is kind of a non-traditional demo. I'm going to show how these things are configured, how easy it is to get set up. Again, welcome. to the chat. If you have any questions or you want me to stop or pause on anything, let me know. Okay, so here I'm on this account page layout. We work on any object, standard or custom, and you have this Lightning Web component that we developed called Centro Linked Conversations. This is kind of a grid view of every linked conversation that's related to this account. And if I were to click one of these rows, you'd see we're rendering the Slack conversation in this sort of preview window. I can scroll through. You'll see it load in a second. You see that little loading? So we can parse through this entire conversation, knowing that someone did this intentionally. They linked this record to this Salesforce account for a purpose because they wanted the next person to learn from it. Or maybe their manager said, if it doesn't happen in Salesforce, it didn't happen. Well, those happenings are now in Slack. So how do we get those Slack conversations into Salesforce? Now here's where Grok can surface, right? So we can press this little button, this little wizard that will summarize the channel using this technology that's called GPT-3. So we're leveraging that technology from OpenAI to summarize the channel. This is a very brief conversation. In fact, I would say that's too brief. So if we click more detail, it's going to give us a more robust answer, a little more detailed. And you can see it says this conversation is between a salesperson, account manager, and business development representative. And I won't read the whole thing to you, but I'd love to encourage you to try this out in your workspace, or we have a sandbox you can play with in our that you can play around with it and see for yourself. How accurate is this to the conversation? We were stunned how well it works in Slack. So there's always a few nuances like that we're always kind of tweaking to get a little better, but we're really impressed with it, and we hope you are as well. Okay, so one other thing is you can message the channel, say thanks. I also wanted to point out something here. And you'll see it go away in a second. See this little archive? We have Grok reminders that are set up every time we create a channel that remind us when a channel goes inactive for X amount of days. So, one of the beefs I hear people say is, well, Ryan, this is great. I love this connection, but you're going to make a mess out of my Slack workspace. And maybe not, right? But to counteract that objection, we have this tool that says, okay, if there's no activity within 14 days of the last activity, so let's say you have all this chat, kind of a bursty conversation about some customer issue, and then it goes dead for 2 weeks. We'll remind you, we'll send a Grok message and say, hey, here's what's been going on. We'll also remind you that to maybe archive or leave the channel after 30 days of no one talking. So kind of a nice way to keep channel management clean and happy in Slack. Now I got this little archive reminder here because this channel is past that due date and I ignored that message in Slack. So if I type in, how's it going? This again is a true bidirectional integration. So this is popping up into that Slack channel. Let's hop over to that Slack workspace. You can see, how's it going? Good. Now, if we come back over to Salesforce, you'll see one unread message, and here it is. Good. Now, if I refresh this, we should see that archive message go away because we've had some activity. There it is. Okay, so a couple of other things to point out here. We're linking any sort of conversation. So that could be a public channel, like you just saw, a thread in a public channel. I'll show you that in a second. An archive channel. So you can go ahead and archive those, clean up your Slack workspace. We keep track of it for you in our linked conversations. So if you ever need to reference it and see what happened in that channel, you can go back and look at it. In private channels, I don't have an example here. I can create one real quick and say, private. And then we'll check this little checkbox that says make private. I can invite some users, right? So let's invite some people and link that channel. So in the UI, create channels, link them, and then you can see this little padlock. and a little selection screen. I can't review this because it's private. We're trying to enforce the security setup in Slack and not break that in Salesforce. So we really want you to go to that conversation in Slack. Now, one thing that we will be doing here shortly is actually hiding the channel name as well. So unless you give your permission, you give permissions to us to actually review this linked channel in Salesforce. Meaning, okay, I'm Ryan in Salesforce, and I'm Ryan in Slack. You give permissions. We account for that. And if those two things map up, when you log into this record, you'll be able to see that conversation, but no one else will, unless they hacked your account, which would be bad. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now let's look at a little configuration. This is Lightning, right? So beauty of Lightning, I can come in here and edit page if I'm an admin. And we have our Lightning component configuration. I love Lightning's builder here because you get all these, you get the actual data of the context of the record you're on in real time. It's so cool. If you're an old classic user like me, that's light years above what you had to do. You had to go modify the page layout, save it, go to a record, refresh, check your changes, come back. It's really, really slick update that they did there. Okay, so now we've got some options here for our Lightning Web component. To get these options, you just click on it, right? So that's for that component. So if we click here, we can see a few different things. First is a channel name formula. What this does is every time you create a new channel, we have a prefix that we append. It's account dash record name, or the object.name. And then you can append whatever description you want onto the channel name. But if you don't like our prefix, go ahead and come in here, change it to whatever you want. And then every new channel will have that prefix based on a formula field. So, sorry, I should clarify that. Go create a custom formula field, have it do whatever fields you want, then reference it in this pick list, and it will show up here as your prefix for channel names. The reason we did that was because oftentimes you're probably using that prefix for other things other than Centro as a formula field. So go ahead and leverage that. I can show you a deep dive on that later if you like. You just check the chat, make sure there's no questions. Okay. Allow public and private channels. Conditionally hide the private channel checkbox. That's what that's showing. So when you created a new channel, you saw those options. You can start to hide some of those options or default them. Make channels private by default. Again, kind of off that, whether or not it's private or not. Pin record details by default. Let me show you what this is first. So we won't make any changes, but I want to show you the creation of a new channel. Let's call it demo vid and add somebody and hit link channel. Let's go to it, and you'll see this record block in Slack. These things, Slack has this record block builder, and we're leveraging that to build out Centros, but you can customize these things in Slack. And really, that's the main mechanism of customizations other than modals and workflows in Slack, is having these custom message blocks. Pretty robust tool. If you get a chance and you're an admin, go to the block kit builder in Slack. Really nice tool, and that's how we built a lot of our tool set here on the Slack side. So now we're pulling from the compact layout for this object. So this object has a compact layout for account, and then we're using that compact layout as the default fields that show up in this record block. This is the context part I was talking about earlier for what fields show up on the record here, or on the Slack side. So now you see some custom buttons here, or buttons here that are actionable. So you not only have the context of the team, you can log calls or tasks in Salesforce and pin them to the channel. And then you have related items too, right? So contacts, opportunities, cases. So right now, those aren't customizable, but we are working on customizing what buttons show up here as related items and as new record items. So pretty cool. Stay tuned for that. That should be up fairly soon. Okay, the reason I want to show you is this idea of a pinned record showing up in the channel. Why does that matter? Why wouldn't we always have that? Well, let's say you have a Slack Connect channel with a partner or a customer. I have many of those going on. Really effective way to talk to your customers and partners or people external to your workspace. We love Slack Connect for that reason. I have Centro integrated in quite a few of them so that they can create cases in our Slack Connect channel, or maybe they want to share information about an opportunity or what have you. Well, you may not want, so you may want to have that connection and that linkage back to your Salesforce in that Slack Connect channel, right? However, maybe you don't want them to see the detail you have about them as an account, right? Let's say let's say account Document Force is a partner of Centro's, and I link this channel, or I link this account to our Slack Connect channel with Document Force. I don't necessarily want Document Force to see, how much revenue we're making off them and how many employees and whatever else is in the compact layout. So I can uncheck this so that you don't pin those records. You can do that at time of creation, but you can also uncheck it here. Remind to archive by default. Again, this is really handy. Creating new channels, you probably want to archive them at some point if they're inactive. And like those tissue paper conversations I was talking about earlier, you probably won't, they only have a small lifetime anyways, but you want to capture all that gold data in Slack and keep it in your system of record. Saves you a lot of time for the next person. Okay, so show conversations related to account. This is very special for only the account object. We're doing this so far, meaning if I have a case, a child object to the account, and there's a linked channel on the case, then surface it in this LWC. Kind of nice to get a full picture of the account if you want to work that way. Show conversations related by email. I think I can show you this pretty quickly. I hope I got it set up, but basically if you have the integration with Salesforce and Gmail, there's that little sidebar that you can link your email to Salesforce. There's a nice interface there to pick a contact or do other things like log the email. We have a Centro component that shows up there as well, and that's how it finds who to pick in the related list. So if you got a new email coming in and you want to share it to a Slack channel, that's the use case there. Enable Grok quick replies. So what is that? I'll enable it and show you. And then enable Grok conversation summary. So if you want to turn off Grok, go ahead, turn it off. That's the way to do that. We like to turn it on because there's a lot of value in kind of getting a quick summary on what's linked there, right? So you don't have to sit there and spin through each channel and read them all. Okay, so now let's show you the quick replies. And okay, there's our Grok. You see now it's changed to an emoticon instead of the wizard. That's because we're doing a sentiment analysis when we have the quick replies turned on. And why do we do that? Because the quick replies provide 4 different kind of quick fill-in replies. You've probably seen this in Gmail, right? Where this fills in a message for you, so you can go about your day really, or you can start crafting a message quickly. So we have 4 sentiments. We're kind of playing with this, right? So positive, negative, indifferent, and a joke. I don't know if I want to show the joke. Some GPT-3 has a funny sense of humor. Hey Hannah, I don't know how many times you used the word approve in your last chat. I guess that's funny. Okay, so that's the LWC. Now, one other thing I want to show you, which is pretty new, I'm actually going to do it on a contact. It makes a lot more sense there. So let's go to Celine. And let's configure this page layout. I'm going to take off the Centro conversations component. We'll take this off for a moment. And let me show you this feature here where we have two types, right? The first one I've been showing you the last 20 minutes or so is that linked conversations LWC. You just drag it on, done, right? You're all set. We have this other component we just developed called single conversations. So linked conversations is useful for multiple, either existing or allow creation of new channels. And Centro single conversation, something I'm really excited about. Now, it's going to take some time to get there, I think. And this probably won't make sense to a lot of you right off the bat, but Slack just released something called Slack Connect DM. And what that means is that you can have a single DM chat with someone outside your workspace. They can't join a public channel or private channel, but just you can DM that one person outside your workspace. Of course, if both admins approve it. But one nice use case you can imagine doing is you have a contact, right? Maybe you want to have a Slack Connect DM with them and surface it in Salesforce. So what you do here is you say which channel or user ID custom field. So you're going to have to put a custom field on this object called, Slack member or something like that. What that's going to do is, I'll show you how this gets set, is use that that Slack Connect channel ID or member or DM ID to surface the conversation here in Salesforce. You can label this, whatever you want, say Slack chat. Allow private, public, or DM. So this does work if you have a public channel you always want to reference on an account or whatever, instead of having a list of accounts. So you can always just have one if that's what you're into. And then enable preview. You can turn this off or just have it by itself. Why would you ever turn this off? Because if you turn it off, that's clickable, right? So you can pop to the DM in the Slack based on that setting. And this is a little confusing. I think it's probably best if I just show you. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to hit a channel. This is a nice channel picker that's linked to your Slack instance, and this is this is that account document force field, and then you can see it's just that single preview pane like I showed you earlier. So if I didn't have the conversation here, I can just click this button or link and go over to the channel in Slack. Now imagine this is not a public channel, but a DM, because this is a single contact. Maybe you want to have the DM surface here in Salesforce. So you're working on this contact. Maybe you're about to email them. Instead of email, you want to Slack Connect and send them a quick message and without leaving the Salesforce interface. That's the idea here. Okay, so that's coming. We don't have access to Slack Connect DM yet, but you can start to paint the picture. If you've already established a channel, then this is one way to do it. Okay, I can show you a lot more here. I think I'm going to hop over to some of the setup for flows. And like I've been doing in the past few kind of streams, has been showing you how to set up and configure flows. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. I'm just going to show you a couple examples and why we chose to use flows as our no-code automation interface. One is because flows is actually pretty powerful once you get the hang of it. And two, we want to attach to that existing functionality to do DML type stuff, right? So what I mean by that is You may want to fire a notification or eliminate an email notification that goes out to all your employees and just surface that in a Slack message instead. A lot more consumable. It's going to be read more. Um, so those kinds of notifications can show up, and it's attached to Salesforce in the first place. So why not just swap out your email with a Slack notification element? So that's one case is notifications. The other is kind of actionable messages, right? So creation of channels, or maybe you want to send an approval to Slack and get a manager to be more responsive to what you're trying to accomplish in Salesforce. So let me show you a couple of options here. Again, I'm not gonna build the flow today. I'm just going to show a couple of our flow elements and how to get to them. So depending on the type of flow you start, how you get to Centro actions is you go to action, and then there's a little section here called Centro, and then you drop this down and see the available Centro actions here. So the first one I want to show is send notification message to Slack. This is probably our most robust and powerful element we have so far, because it can do so much in one shot. So you can give it a label, description, which channel you're going to send to. Again, there's that picker of all your available channels and DMs. So of course you can send a message to a DM. You can alternatively use a variable. Let's say you have a flow that you assign. You were going to assign a case to somebody, and now you're going to assign it to someone else. And your flow has that all spelled out. You can use a variable here instead, just as long as you are keeping track of that Slack message conversation, or that Slack message ID somewhere. Usually that's at the user level, and we do package that. I'll show you that in a minute. Okay, post a custom message. Again, you can use resources for variables in the message. So can put a pretty robust thing, including emojis. Like I'm on a Mac here, I can show the emoji picker and insert an emoji. Fun way to get that message out there. We support at here and at channel and at everyone. And here's the formatting to do that. It's the little brackets and then an explanation point. If you have a specific user, here's where this comes in. You can say, and then insert your resource. Let's say it's channel ID, and let's pretend that's a user instead that has the member ID linked to it. That's gonna do an at person. Okay, lots of cool stuff just in the message itself. Then underneath the message, you can post those record details like I talked about earlier. You can optionally link the record to the channel via this message. Again, you can use a variable in there. So it could be the record you're on or some other record. And you can attach now a Salesforce file. You got to use the content version. I'm going to do a whole nother webinar on this soon. I've done one before, but what's nice here is if you have the content, if you have a Salesforce file, we don't support attachments. Sorry, you gotta get with the program and get on the new Salesforce files, and attach those to a Slack message. So you can have your message, your record details, and then the file, and have a conversation around that. Then you can put underneath that custom buttons. So like approve, decline, etc., or reject or whatever. Now buttons can have two kinds of actions. They can go to a URL, so they can pop you back to Salesforce, or maybe some other destination. But we have an integration with FormStack we've been playing with. That's pretty cool. And you can also publish a Salesforce platform event. Again, deep dive, look back at my video collection. I'm on this. I'll do more of these soon, but this is a super powerful way to go trigger other events in Salesforce without having to leave the Slack interface. Okay, so that's our send notification action block. A couple others really quickly. Create channel and invite users. So again, picking a channel name, you can invite one or more users to that channel, make it private, and then this is useful to create it and then send it back to collect which the channel ID was, because you don't have the channel ID until it's created, right? So this is a way to get that back and store that as a variable. Okay, last one is send a file. Now you could probably argue, well, this is just redundant, right? Why don't you just use the message block? And in most cases, you probably will. But we launched this before we had that functionality. It is a nice way to send a just a flat file to Slack, so it's stored in Slack. Again, content ID and channel ID is all you get there. Okay, so that's some of the flow elements. You can go crazy with customized flows. Again, that's kind of it's kind of going to take you a little longer than just dropping the LWC, the Lightning Web Component, on a page layout, but super powerful once you get configured. And we're happy to help. So we have partners that can help you. We can help you. So be aware of that. Okay, now on the Slack side, I'm going to show you some of the capabilities that if you live and breathe in Slack. Okay, so that's just to get started on the Salesforce side. And interestingly enough, we started Centro as just a Slack app. We were actually hesitant to create a Salesforce app. Then we saw this need for it in talking to customers and having a true kind of companion app setup. Setup is super, super simple. All you do is install the Slack app from our app directory, and then you have your settings here. And to get started, all you really need to do is log in with your connected Salesforce user. So I've got this demo org, and all you do is connect to Salesforce, punch in your login information, and say yes to the OAuth, and we take care of the rest. Seriously, that's all it takes. I mean, you could get started with Centro in literally however fast you can type in your login. Okay, so a question I hear often is like, well, how do I get an existing channel linked up to Salesforce? Like that say someone comes in here, creates a channel called, demo vid. How am I going to link that to Salesforce, right? Because people can absolutely do this and not start from the Salesforce side, or maybe they don't even have access to Salesforce. So demo vid channel. First thing I'm going to do is invite the bot and just add it to the channel so it can participate and do all the cool stuff that we need it to do. Now I can say /centro. I'll just do /centro and you can see what happens. So here are the actions when you do /centro, and this is a ephemeral message, so only you're going to see it. It's kind of nice. I've seen some app makers post the options to the channel, which just clutters up the channel. So this is nice, so you can see what's going on without affecting the conversation. And we've got a lot of functionality here. So we have draft an SMS, link or search to Salesforce, create new records in Salesforce, manage email templates, Grok conversation, and archive reminder. Okay, a lot to unpack there. You can always do everything as a button or as a / command. So I can do /centro help and see our available / commands. So we got /centro Grok the current conversation, email, SMS, search or link to Salesforce. I'll show you that in a second. New Salesforce record, templates, and archive. Let's just do each one. I'll come back to email and SMS. That's a huge deep dive. In fact, maybe in this demo, I think I'm going to stick to just Salesforce stuff. I'll do a deep dive on email and SMS on the next one. I gotta always have something to talk about, right? /centro. So let's stick to Salesforce. I've got this channel, good conversation we've been having. Let's link it to Salesforce. We get some buttons out of box. So leads, cases, contacts, accounts. Now if I click accounts, I get this interface to search all accounts that are assigned to, we can filter by owner. Um, this isn't a great demo use case because there's only two people, but we'll just say, ones that are assigned to me. And I can click more and page through them. We got 26 records to page through, 3 at a time. So I might as well search, right? So we'll say document force, and this should pare down this list. And now we have this little selection, and we'll hit select. And now we get this dialog that says, okay, create or link a channel. What's this all about? It's very similar to that interface you saw on the Salesforce side, which is to say we can create new channels and have the prefix, or we can link to existing ones. In this case, I want to link it to the existing one I'm in, demo vid. When you drop this down, it does remember the last channels you're in. So I'll hit demo vid here. Here's that archive reminder surfaced again. So remind me after so many days. So I'll pick 14. Link to channel. There's our message block. If I were to go over to Salesforce and refresh our screen here, we will see demo vid. Okay, so we've made the association from the Salesforce or from the Slack side. Some niceties here. You get this log a call. This is just straight call with John, and that can link to Salesforce. That create a call there, and we can optionally post it to the channel. Same with tasks. When you have the related items here and you click contacts, you'll see the contacts that are underneath the selected record. So we got document force here. We'll select Rachel. And again, it's prompting, do you want a new channel or existing one? So we'll pick the existing. And now we have some context for the team that's in relation to Salesforce popping up here and making that linkage for you. If we were to go to Rachel, you'd see the same demo vid linked up. You see some different buttons here, draft email and SMS. Again, we'll play with those two features next time. Okay, you can create new records, right? So we can say /Centro new project. I think it's _C. It does custom objects here. Is this gonna work? Yep. So I got a custom project record. You can do that for any you can do that for any field. The catch is you got to know the API name. We are updating it so you can have customizable new buttons wherever you want them. But this is the page layout of the project, so including any required fields. So these are all the fields on the page layout. Even if you see there's that little break there, that divider, that's for a section in a new section on the page layout. Nice way to enter in data. I find entering leads or cases in way faster when I do it this way from a new perspective. Okay, so again, we're trying to provide a lot of buttons in Slack, so you don't have to remember all those / commands, and you can just kind of work with the linked records. So that's a really important aspect of our integration, is to have that linkage there so you can quickly maneuver your Salesforce data on the Slack side. One last thing, we do have a change owner. If there's an owner field on the object, we have the ability to change the owner here. This is really useful for cases or leads, for example, high volume stuff. Okay, last thing I want to show is linking a thread. So let's say that we have, I just got off the phone. And we start a thread here. And we'll say, John is upset. Product failed. Okay, so let's pretend now, let's switch gears and say this demo vid is more of a general channel, and you have a lot of different conversations going on. And I've heard this a few times. Well, I don't use Slack that way, Ryan. That's going to be too many channels. Despite all your archiving, I just don't want it to work that way. We have customer conversations as threads. It's just cultural how we're doing it in big general channels. That's fine. We support you in that. And the way to link and capture that information is really simple. So we're going to hit under the more actions. There's this link to Salesforce message action that we've developed. If you've ever seen these message shortcuts, really handy. There's other apps here. And if you don't see it the first time, you got to go pick it from the list if you've installed Centro. And then you just type in, this is nice. This shows the recent records, but you can also just start typing. It's really snappy. And it shows you a social search of accounts, contacts, opportunities, projects that match that name that you're typing in. And then, Slack names the channels, of course, right? You've seen that. If you're familiar with Slack at all, you know that it's all based on channel names. Well, there's no such thing as a thread name, right? So there's just these threads that exist in sort of parent channels. Now we do need to name that because it's got some juicy details that we want to be able to reference later in Salesforce. So we'll say, we'll call it, John is upset. And then we'll link to Salesforce. By the way, you don't have to follow the naming scheme as rigidly as you do when you create a channel. And now, if we come in here, we should see our new thread linked. John is upset. So again, this is a channel, or this is a linked thread that you have Grok available to you. The sentiment is angry. John's upset. So threads, public channels, private channels, this is saving you a ton of time, not only in the moment of having those actions surface to you while you're having a conversation to progress a deal or to progress a case or any customer related issue, but also for the next person at bat, right? So you're going to hand this off to somebody at some point, whether it's an implementation team, a new TM, maybe you're switching territories, or maybe you're going to have a new case owner or a new customer success manager. There's always going to be some kind of handoff. You got to save them time. And the power in that is not having them, go through Slack and try to piece together what's going on. It's all in Slack. We just need to piece it together in Salesforce. And that's where Centro comes in. Okay, let me just check the chat. I haven't checked in a while if there's any additional questions. If not, I'm going to sign off and we will talk next week. Thanks.